All right, gentlemen. Sorry for my tardiness there. I was deep working on a project that I was trying to wrap up before the workshop, and you know how that goes. I get carried away, and time flies by. All right, well, welcome to another Bloodhound workshop here, and I do see Melroy's in the room, and so Melroy emailed a question in to figure out how to add a couple of filtering conditions here to a system here to prevent the signals from firing off, when certain conditions happen there. So, all right, so yeah, so we'll use that emailed in question to as our first as our first question to get the workshop started. All right, and then after that, I'll take all the questions in the Q&A window. And let me just finish looking at the names here. All right, I think I recognize all the names in the room here, but just in case, actually there's one name I'm not quite sure of, so just in case, let me ask if there's anybody new to the workshops or fairly new to the workshops. Yeah. Oh, and all right, I don't see any yeses or answers, so great. Okay, let's get started here. Um, all right, so a couple of questions here. All right, yeah. So one requirement here, right, is no cell signals on an up bar, right? So if the bar is closing up, then no cell signals there, right? Um, and then the other one here, which is better explained over here, yeah, which is if signals are being generated, then filter them out if the MACD is sloping in the opposite direction. All right. So same thing, the reverse of that is if there's cell signals, then remove those cell signals if the MACD is sloping, upward, right? So no buy signals, no long signals if the MACD is sloping downward, right? And also no buy signals if it's a down candle there, right? So, all right, pretty straightforward there. So, all right, this will take me a moment to kind of put something together here so I have some signals to work with here. All right, so hopefully this works. I'm going to use the stochastics to generate some signals there. So let's see here. Yeah, I'll generate buy signals when the stochastics is overbought, short signals when it's oversold, and then we'll use the MACD, right, as sloping down to remove those buy signals when the MACD's or stochastic is overbought. All right, and if what happened to my mouse there? All right, I think my mouse needs to be charged up. Let's find out. Yeah, well, so much for Logitech software. It never seems to tell me when the battery's low. All right, there we go. All right, so as I was saying, so when we get a short signal here, when the stochastics is oversold, then we'll filter those short signals out, right, when the MACD is sloping upward, like so. So let's get Bloodhound open. And first thing you want to do is set your file name there. So we'll hit the save button. There we go. So now we can put a file name in place. And what is it? The 5th. All right. All right. So once we have a file name there, then at least every time you close the Bloodhound window, your work gets saved back to the file there. So first thing is I'll generate, some fictitious signals to work with here. So I'm going to use the threshold solver to identify when the stochastics is overbought or oversold. So let's go plug in the stochastics indicator. All right, there we go. And I did slow it down there, so that way we'll get a longer period of signals kind of similar to that screenshot. Next, let's identify the overbought and oversold using the threshold rules. All right, so anything greater than 80 or anything less than 20. All right, there we go. Here. All right, so there's our signal source. And so when you want to start filtering your signals out, based on some logical conditions there, that's what AND nodes mainly do, right? So somewhere in your system, you're going to have an AND node. And when it comes to filters, kind of like a primary or a base filter, such as, the MACD, needs to be sloping in the same direction as your signals, right? That would be a primary kind of filter there, or it could be like a moving average needs to be sloping in the same direction as your signals, right? So when you're putting those kind of filters in, then it's usually 99.9% of the time you need to connect those to the last AND node in your system, right? More complex systems, right? You might have an AND node in the middle, like that, where you have smaller conditions that you're kind of defining, right? But yeah, these kind of filters would go into the last AND node just before the result node. So, all right. Anyways, let's simplify that. So let's create our MACD filter here. So basically, we just want to know what direction is the MACD sloping. Is it sloping up or sloping down? So for that, anything related to the slope of an indicator, we're going to use the slope solver there. So let's connect that into the result node there. All right, let's give that a name. So we're just looking at the MACD slope. So let's plug in our MACD indicator. All right, there we go. And the MACD, I'm just using the standard settings there. And we are actually, hold on, no, actually we're looking at the histogram. So yeah, let me just clear that up. I've been saying the MACD, but more specifically, it is the histogram. Yeah, there we go. So when the diff of the MACD, right, or the histogram of the MACD. Yeah. All right. So yeah, just whatever indicator plot line you want to use. So if you are using the MACD, then there you go. But if you want to use the histogram, we'll just select it right there. There. Okay. Now, let's also go into our MACD and let me turn that histogram on. There. All right, there we go. Now we can see the histogram. All right. So the default settings for the slope solver. All right, so our slope solver here, if we go into the slope rules, there, right, the default settings is you get a long output when something is rising, right, and you get a short output if your indicator is falling, if the slope is falling, right? So, right, so let's see here. Yeah, so here's the histogram, right, is falling. So we get a short output, and once it starts to rise, we get a long output, right? So now, let's connect that in. And so here's our signals. Yeah, so we can see, right, the histogram is falling, and then it looks like maybe it rises one bar, and then it starts to fall again. So if we connect that in, there we go. That's all we're left with. Yeah, let's kind of scale that up a little bit. There. Now we can see that a little bit better. There. All right, so that would be our MACD histogram slope. And let me disconnect that. And now the other condition that was asked about is making sure that we only get long signals with an up bar. So that's probably the most basic of all kind of signal filtering, right? So let's just grab a bar direction. And of course, the bar direction, right? Up bars produce a long output, and down bars produce a short output. There we go, a bunch of down bars producing a short output. So if we connect that into our AND node, there we go. Only long signals on up bars, and we can see all these down bars, that long signal has been stripped out or blocked, removed, right? So now let's connect in our MACD histogram slope, and let's actually name this to its fullest extent there. All right. Yeah. So there we have it. And just as a little trick here, sometimes this comes in handy, where if you want to see the signals there, right? Well, yeah, so if you want to kind of see your base signals along with the ultimate signals here, we can plug our base signals into the OR node, and then on the OR node, go to the Options tab, and we can reduce the output here. You know, something like 0.3, 0.2, you know, whatever you kind of like there. And then add another OR node, and now we can combine, you know, this partial output. You know, typically I'll do 0.2, which, you know, knock that down a little bit more. There we go. All right. So, and our actual, you know, full signals here, and then connect up that OR node there. And so when we look at Bloodhound, there we go, we can see whenever, right, when our full signals occur, right, which again is when that stochastic is oversold there. Yeah. All right, well, yeah, so this first question here was pretty simple and straightforward. Just use the bar direction solver to isolate your long signals only when there's an up bar, and remove your long signals if there's a down bar, right? And then we can use the slope solver to remove signals when some indicator plot is sloping against the direction, you know, of your signals there. Let's see here. Oh yeah, there was one extra little step here I was going to throw in. So, yeah, so we can filter our the slope of our MACD, so that way, if the MACD is, you know, I guess you could do, you know, both the opposites here. So if the MACD is really close to the 0 line, then we can disable that filtering there. Right. So that way, if I wonder if we even have something workable here. Yeah, we can just force something to work here. All right. So what I'm going to do is, if the MACD is less than 5, then or only when the MACD is less than 5 do we block those long signals. So if the MACD is greater than 5, so let's see, where is 5? 5 is right about there. All right, so if the MACD is greater than 5 and sloping down, then allow the long signals to go through. All right, so let's see. So to do that, we're going to need a threshold solver. And let me stop for a moment. And yeah, okay. Just getting this organized in my head first here. All right, so with the threshold solver, let's first plug in our MACD here. All right, there's our MACD. And yeah, so this time I'm just, no, actually I'm going to look at the diff. I'll look at the diff line as well, or the histogram. There we go. All right. So for long signals, we're checking to see, right, if the MACD is greater than 5, and for shorts, if the MACD is less than 5 there. All right, so let's go into the threshold rules. And so we'll produce a long output if the MACD is greater than 5. And of course, remember, there is a greater than and equals version of that. So if you want to include 5, right, but I'm just going to leave it out for now. So, right, and a short, we'll get a short if the MACD is less than -5, right? Yeah. So what that means is this entire time, the entire time, the MACD is greater than 5, it doesn't matter what the slope, right? We're overriding the slope filter if the MACD histogram is greater than 5 there for long signals, right? So to do that, we need an OR node. So either one of those will work there. So let's connect that in and then connect this filter in. There, and let's see. So we still have 2 bars here being filtered out as it's sloping down. Oh, you know what? We may just need a reload. Let's see. Nope. All right, let's go do a little debugging here and see where I went wrong in my logic. All right, so first let's make sure that the histogram here, or the difference, is greater than 5. Yes, it is. Okay. And then all right, let me mark those. There. All right, so now let's take a look at this OR node. And that OR node it does have a long output. Oh, all right. There we go. I just needed to disconnect our bar direction. There we go. Always something simple. There we go. So that is all correct. We had the bar direction there filtering it out, right? We have 2 down bars there. And there we go. I have 2 down bars. And so, all right. All fixed. Just had to remove the bar direction filter there. Yeah. And of course, this could be reversed. We could go into the trailing rolls and, modify our logic there, our conditional statements there, so that way the opposite would be allowed. So long signals could occur when the histogram is, close to the 0 line, right? And sloping down as well, right? So you can just, kind of mix and match everything there. So, all right. Let's see here. And I think, let me take a look at the question again. Oh, I guess it was in the text. Yeah, it must have been in the text of the email. Um, it was stated that, you know, how it was asked, how to, let me connect that up, right? How to, filter out the signals when the histogram is sloping, down. How do I filter out the longs and getting close to the zero line there? So that is effectively what we have done there. So if we look at this filter here, right, and we look at the output, so right, so there's a long output here, and let's see, the histogram is, at what, 7.3, and the next bar, the histogram is at 5.4, and it's still sloping down, and we do get a long output, so that means a long signal will be permitted. But then right here, right, so when the long output goes away, and our difference is 2.7 or 2.8, right? So getting close to the zero line, right? So that is effectively what we did. Same thing over here, right? The histogram is sloping down, and once that histogram gets to 4.9, right, just below 5, getting close to that zero line and sloping down, then the long output goes away, and that's what removes a long signal if there was a long signal there, which I don't think there was. Yeah, no, there was no long signal there. Here we go. Let's take a look at this. What are those? Yeah, here we go. So these are 4 point something. These three bars are all in the 4 point something range there. And so if we look at the output there, right? Oh, yeah. So the histogram actually did step up, so it sloped up for one bar, and allowed that long signal through there. Yeah. So if we look at our filters here, yeah, there we go. So as the histogram is sloping down, right, but it's, subjectively it's not close to the zero line, so we get a long output there. And then once it gets close to the zero line, that long output disappears, but then it slopes up, so it doesn't matter how close it is to the zero line, right? The histogram sloped up, and then a long signal allowed to get through, right? But then it dropped back down, and it dropped back down, and the long signals disappeared, right? So yeah, so there you go. So close to zero, is obviously a personal decision there. So I just picked 5, so I would have something to work with, um, yeah, with this chart here. All right. So I think with that, we're all done with this question. So let me check to see if there's any follow-ups on this. And but first, let's give this a name. Yeah. All right, connect that back in. There we go. All right, yeah, looks like we do have a question here. Um, Yeah, so we're gonna add an ATR filter requirement to this here. Um, yeah, so last week, so the question is, how do we block signals if the ATR is exceeding some value here? So for example, if the ATR is exceeding 21, then block those signals, right? The ATR is too large, right? The market volatility, is too much, so it's blocked the signals, right? So there's no trading going on. So that actually was demonstrated how to do that in Blackbird, but again, trying to fix your signals in Blackbird is the wrong way to do it. You should fix your signals wherever your signals are coming from. So if your signals are coming from Bloodhound, you should fix your signals in Bloodhound because Blackbird is not designed to fix your signals, right? So there is a workaround, but workarounds, as the name implies, it's a workaround. So there could be other issues that you could create when you're using workarounds. Yeah. So um, yeah. So all filters, all filtering of your signals should be done in Bloodhound or the other, or if you're using a custom indicator, right, that custom indicator should be modified and, corrected so that you can add the filters in that custom indicator. So, all right, so yeah, so we'll add another logic template here. And what should we call this? All right, so we're going to block signals when the ATR is greater than 21. And, oh, yeah, I always do this. So if you look here on, right, the solvers panel, I actually renamed this solver by accident. So I'm always doing that. So let me undo this and get that solver name back again. There we go. There's our stochastic signals. Yeah, so when you want to rename the logic template there, make sure that the result node is clicked on. There we go. All right, like so. There. Okay. Now we got it fixed. All right, so let's bring over our signals. And again, whenever you're applying filtering, you need an AND node. There we go. So there's our signals. And next, let me add the ATR. All right, there's our ATR. And let's see, I'm going to slow this down a little bit so that way hopefully we'll get more, bigger spikes in the ATR. All right. And let's see, we're on the NASDAQ here. Okay, great. We get a lot of values greater than 21. Okay, well, let me, I guess, put that back to 14. Mm, hmm. There. All right, yeah, so as we can see, all these long signals and these short signals are going to be stripped out. So, yeah. All right, so if we want to know if the So what 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 allows signals, so when you're building filters, you're actually building the condition that allows the signal through, right? You're not building the condition that removes the signal, but the condition that allows the signal, right? So the AND node, um, everything connected into it, when they all agree, then you get an output, right? You get a signal output. So if you build something that is always disagreeing with what you want, then with the AND node, you'll never get a signal coming out. Yeah. So blocking signals when the ATR is greater than 21, the opposite of that is allow signals when the ATR is less than 21, right? So that's what we want, is we want to know when the ATR is less than 21, so that way signals are allowed to go through. All right, so the indicator there, let's put in our ATR, and again, I did change that back to 14 there. So now we need to go into the threshold rules. All right, and so we want to know when the ATR is less than 21. Right. Now, the ATR is non-directional, right? It's volatility, non-directional. So whenever you're checking a indicator that is non-directional, you always got to make sure that your conditions both match up, right? So because we both, the ATR being less than 21 is going to allow long signals and it's going to allow short signals, right? So both of those conditions need to be the same. So let's hit apply, and oh, nothing shows up. So let's click there, and there we go. So that is when the ATR is less than 21, right? And yeah, you know what? On the NQ, in today's markets, yeah, it's always greater than 21. All right, let's just bump this up so we have so we can actually get some signals through. All right, we'll just bump this up to 30. And man, really? So yeah, as soon as the market opened, yeah, the ATRs just screamed up there. All right, 40? Man. Well, all right, there's a little bit there. All right, I'm gonna go with 40. There. Okay. There we go. So basically, at the market open, volatility there. All those signals are going to be stripped out where there is no bloodhound output, right? So where there is an output here, or in other words, where there's a racing stripe, a signal will be allowed. All right, so let's connect that up and connect that in. And once again, just so we can see everything, let's do that OR node trick. well, this is a little hard to see here, so let me just, I'll knock up the value, make this a little easier to see. There we go, 0.4, there. There we go. All right, yeah, so we can see that there would have been some long signals here, but in this case, the ATR, right, was greater than 40. And there would have been some short signals, but greater than 40. And as the ATR slowly dropped below 40, there we go. Now we get some signals again. There. All right, so there is our ATR filter. And all right, so let me go back to the Q&A window and see what other follow-ups we might have here. Yeah, all right, so we got that one done. All right, well, yeah, I guess Melroy, I think this is just a comment there. I don't really see a question, so um, all right. Yeah, so yeah, as your question implied, you just need to add that MACD filtering, yep, to your system. And it sounds like you're good to go. Excellent. All right. Yeah, so these solvers here, there's the ATR, less than whatever you want it to be, 21 in your case. There's that filter. And then there's the bar direction filter. And then there is the MACD difference slope, or the MACD histogram slope solver there. Right? So yeah, if you wanted, if we wanted to see them all connected together, then all I'd need to do is also drag over the ATR filter, connect that into the AND node, and there we have it. So yeah, so there we go. We can see, yeah, we had those shorts filtered out, those longs signals filtered out, and those short signals filtered out. There we go. And we got a few long here as the ATR has slowly been, declining there below 40. So, all right, but I will undo that and leave it like that. There. All right, well, gentlemen, I'm ready for the next question to come in here. There. So, and Aaron says, sorry he's late. Don't worry about it, Aaron. People come and go whenever they can. So, you're not going to be graded on today's workshop, so don't worry about it. So, there's no test at the end of the month or anything like that. So, this is a self-educational course. So, take it at your own pace. All right. There's not even a pass-fail grade at the end. So, all right. All right, guys. So again, I'm just waiting on the next Bloodhound question to come in here. So let's see here. All right. Yeah. So while I'm waiting on the next letdown question to come in, and gentlemen, I'm just gonna mute my microphone and try and clear out my voice here. Man, the heater turned on and just dried my throat out. All right, so hopefully somebody's working on some questions for me. Let's see, where are we at? We're now, yeah, we're not even at the 1 hour mark yet. So yeah, it's pretty early, but who knows? This might be a short workshop if there's no more questions. Well, gentlemen, just to make it clear here, so we're all on the same page, um, I'll hang around for another, what is 10, 11 minutes. So I'll hang around till at least 5 minutes after the hour, 5 minutes after the hour. So just in case, people come here at the top of the hour, then I'll at least give them an opportunity to see if they have some questions for me. All right. So, all right, good. Looks like Aaron has a question for me. Okay, let me take a moment to absorb his question. Hmm. All right, so Aaron's asking, so he wants to use the VIX and identify when the VIX increases parabolic, All right, that's pretty subjective, but I think we all get the picture. Yeah. Uh, yeah. So when the VIX has a it has a big spike, um, then exit whatever trade might be open. So generate an exit signal there. So the question is, does it slow Shark and Ninja at all? I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know. I haven't had access to the VIX in a long time. It shouldn't. I mean, I don't see why it would. It's just a data series. Data series is a data series is a data series. So, right. So a data series is, just a classification name for incoming data. So, yeah, I don't know why one any certain data feeds would slow NinjaTrader down, but realistically, that's a question for NinjaTrader, because NinjaTrader is the one that connects up to your data feed and disseminates that data, and processes it for indicators to use. So that yeah, that's a very uh, uh, deeply rooted question to the um, what to the for the underlying framework of NinjaTrader's data series and how it operates. So yeah, I've never heard of that, but if you want a real answer, yeah, you need to throw that question at NinjaTrader. So yeah, I mean the as always, um, the best answer is to prove it out yourself. Yeah. So if you have any doubts, the best solution, the only way to get a real answer is to test it yourself. Yeah. Um, because NinjaTrader and I myself say this all the time when asked those kind of vague questions. Well, how fast is your computer? How fast is your internet? Right? There's so many things, so many other elements, um, you know, um, that influence how fast NinjaTrader runs. So, yeah. So there really is no answer that anybody can email back to you. No, that answer has a thousand shades of gray because there's lots of things that could affect that. So yeah, just give it a shot and let it run on live markets. And actually, right now is a really good time because we're still in really in extreme having extreme volatile days still. So now is the perfect time to test stress test things like that is in today's markets because um, you know uh, volatility does eventually the markets do finally settle down and that volatility kind of goes away um, after time and who knows maybe after maybe by the time the second the Q2 earnings reports comes out or yeah, the markets might finally begin to kind of settle down and the volatility kind of uh, shrink back down to normal. So yeah, yeah. So bottom line is, if you have any concerns about your system that you're working on now, any concerns about it freaking out during extreme volatile times, well, right now is a perfect time to test it out. So yeah, or uh, or better yet, download some of NinjaTrader's market replay data. So that way you always have something like that on hand that you can always use to use, these last few months of extreme market volatilities to stress test any new idea you're working on. So, all right. Well, anyways, gentlemen, only a few minutes late. I don't think anybody just got in here late. Um, so yeah, so I'll hang around for a couple more minutes to see if there's any actual Bloodhound questions, right? If not, then yeah, we'll wrap it up for today. Hi, Melroy. I already answered that question. Yeah. So, yeah, if you weren't able to watch, um, the answer there, so let me pull this up. Yeah. So this right here is the answer to that question. Yeah. So if you weren't able to catch that, then just watch the video. So what you can do is email support and ask for today's workshop here to be uploaded to the raw channel here. So let me pull that up here. Yeah. So while our video editor, is taking time to edit the videos, as we can see here, there's actually quite the backlog here. Yeah, I mean, look at that. There's a whole bunch of workshops here that are all backlogged. Um, yeah, so if you want to be able to watch the recording, of the answer here to your ATR question here, just email support and ask that the uh, recording is uploaded to the raw channel here, right? And yeah, and that'll get done, and then you can watch the answer to your question there. Um, Most likely by later on tonight. So yeah, usually it takes, so after a video has been uploaded, it does take YouTube a little while to process it before it actually shows up, on their website. So, yeah, let's see. Oh, sorry. Melroy didn't actually answer that question. Sorry. I was looking at the dismissed questions. Okay. Anyways, all right. But Melroy does have another question here. Okay. Uh, let's see. Mm, all right. I'm just trying to understand the question here. Sorry, Melroy. Yeah, I'm not exactly understanding what condition you're looking for from the MACD and the average lines. Um, hmm. Yeah, so you want Bloodhound to, I think, generate more trade signals, yeah, towards the crossover and the diff slope going down. Hmm. All right. So Melroy, at what timestamp are we talking about here? So on your screenshot, what timestamp are you looking at? All right, Melroy. I'll give you a couple of minutes to answer my question here. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up for today. Well, all right. Well, I'm not hearing back, so all right, gentlemen. I haven't seen any Bloodhound questions in, well, Melroy's, but but seems like Melroy stepped away, so I can't answer his question. Um, so all right. Well, gentlemen, with that, we'll wrap it up for today. Yeah, another short workshop. Um, all right. So, as always, if you do have questions there, excuse me. Let's see. Well, actually, hold on. Let's see here. Aaron says he'll email his question. Um, All right, Aaron, are you going to email your question right now, or is this a question for next week? All right, well, since I'm not hearing back from anybody, I guess let me let me do a sound check. I mean, I can see my microphone's working here um, on my end, but if somebody could just give me a sound check, let me know sounds okay, because I'm not getting a response back from anybody. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. All right. Oh, there we go. Okay, now Aaron got back to me. Let's see. All right. Yeah. So Aaron's question is about um, how do you generate a signal when you have at least four conditions out of six conditions that are true. So you have six conditions, but you only need four of them to be true. How do you generate a signal from that? So, yeah. All right, let's see. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to do a little search here. um, well, all right. I know there's a video here. Let me, if I put some numbers in here, I think it might have been 4 out of 5. Hmm. That's too bad Google doesn't apply their Gemini AI to YouTube. um, well, all right. I'm not finding it, so let's let's do this again here. All right, we'll make another one up on the fly here. Um, all right. First, let me just kind of clean up the Q&A window. Actually, let me do one more search. Oh, all right. I give up. Oh. Um, all right, so just have to give me a moment here to kind of come up with something off the top of my head. And I'm going to try and work with what I have. Hmm. I'm going to assemble all the various conditions first, and then I'll explain. So I'm not going to explain um, all the different little, indicator conditions here. I'm just going to try and come up with something off the top of my head. And then once I have enough conditions here, then I'll explain how to identify, X number of conditions out of the total number of conditions. Um, All right, so I have 6 conditions here. So, all right, so if you want to find out, hey, sorry, 5 conditions. So if we're looking for 3 out of the 5 conditions, occurring, then that's good enough to generate a signal. All right, so to do that, we want the additive node here. Right, so we're going to add the conditions together. Right. Um, so we only need 3 conditions. So that's what's important, right? So in the title, X is the important number here. So if you only need 3 out of however many you have, right, you need 3 nodes to add up to 1. Right, so that means each node, all of these nodes, need to have a value of 0.33, right? That way, when a minimum of 3 are true, right, they add up to 90.99, which is essentially, right, 100%. So, now the other thing you have to do is, how do we get these nodes, how do we reduce them down to 0.33 or 1/3? Well, that's, what the options tab here does, right? You can reduce the output there. You can add a multiplier, or you can, adjust the slider and reduce it down to 0.33, or 0.34, like that, right? Now, of course, this solver here, this node, it's being used by, these other questions that were asked. So effectively, I broke the logic here from these other questions because I modified this same node here. Yeah, so be mindful of that. So in order to fix that problem, let's see. Okay, good. That was undone. All right. Yeah. So if your node is being used somewhere else, this is a little extra tip here, then we can just take an OR node and reduce the OR node right down to 0.33, like so, there, right? So that way the original solver, it still has an output of 1, and therefore, right, it doesn't break the logic in one of the other logic templates here, right? So, so we need to make sure each of these nodes, or conditions, has a value of only 0.33. So again, when 3 of them are true, the additive node will add them up to 0.99, or essentially 1. So, all right, so this, this MACD difference slope also is also being used somewhere else. And let me just double check that. Yeah, so I do need an OR node for this guy, so I'm not modifying the other systems. So, all right, connect that in. And let's just double check the options. There we go, it's 0.33. Great, right? So you'll notice in Bloodhound, we get an output, but it's only 0.33, right? So it's not enough to generate a racing stripe or a signal. Right? So, okay, and so these other nodes here, I just made them up off the fly. So I'm just going to go in and actually knock the actual solver down to 0.33. There. All right, going to this next one. Reduce that down to 0.33 and the last one down here as well. There. All right, so now we just connect everything into the additive node. And there we have it. All right. So when we look at the output, yeah, we can see, the output's actually going to tell us like how many are true. So here, well, actually we can just kind of step back. Yeah. Yeah, I wish there was a way to get rid of that 0 for the 0 line. That's, man. But we there, stretch that up. There we go. Yeah, so we can see it's 0.33. So that means one of these nodes is true, right? Now, which one's true? You're not going to know because that's not what Bloodhound does. Bloodhound doesn't tell you each individual condition, right? Bloodhound just gives you the total sum there. But at least you know, okay, here we have at least one of these conditions out of the 5 true, right? And then this bar right here, right, we can see we have 2 because that's 0.66, right? And then we get up to 0.99, right? And then we get a racing stripe there, racing signal. So there we go. All right, so yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Just whatever x is, you just take 1 divided by x. So 1 divided by 3 is 0.33, and so all of the outputs of your nodes need to be knocked down to 0.33, right? And if you can't modify, once again, if you don't want to modify the output value of a node, a solver that's being used somewhere else, then you can use an OR node, right, as a proxy to knock that value down. Now, if we needed 4 out of 5, then we'd have to set the value down to 0.25, right, a quarter, right? So 1 divided by 4 is a quarter. There. Let me just make sure all of those didn't get reset by accident. Excellent. Okay. There we go. All right, there we go. Pretty straightforward there, Aaron. And all right, let's see what other questions there might be. All right, sounds like Aaron learned something new. And yeah, that effectively is really the only time the additive node ever gets used, because extremely very few people ever use Bloodhound in its fuzzy logic mode. And really the additive node there's for well, it's a necessary node if you're actually using Bloodhound in its native fuzzy logic mode. So, but nobody likes to think that way. It's too much math, and yeah, admittedly, it definitely is a lot of math. Yeah, trying to use Bloodhound in fuzzy logic mode. So let's see here. All right, so going through the Q&A window, clearing things out. Yeah, so here's a follow-up question. Yeah, so what if you take one of the nodes and you want to give one of the nodes a stronger weighting? Then is the total more than one? No, no. The max output that you ever get is one. So yeah, there's no, um, that's just overcomplicating things to allow Bloodhound to give an output greater than one. Again, the reason why we came up with Bloodhound version 2 is nobody liked having to deal with the fuzzy logic interface of Bloodhound version 1. Um, so after what, 7 years of doing these workshops, we finally kind of realized, all right, time to bite the bullet and redo the interface to kind of um, by default remove the fuzzy logic from the interface and make it more binary, true or false. So, and yeah, it definitely has made understanding, each of these solvers a lot easier there. But again, with fuzzy logic, Bloodhound's only designed to go to +1 or -1, right, or anything in between there. So yeah, so um, you can, again, if you take a look at the options tab, right, you can multiply stuff, right? So technically, this solver, well, it's still set to 33. Let's set it down to 1. So technically, this solver at its output um, is going up to 2. But once it goes through a logic node, like an AND node, it'll get knocked down to 1. I think even OR nodes might knock it down to 1 as well. But at the very least, the result node max, it has a max output of 1 or -1. So, but for the additive, yeah, so the solvers themselves actually will have an output greater than 1. So that way, yeah, you do have full control over the math being done. So you can give one node a much higher weighting here. And the same thing is necessary for the ratio node, right? So for the ratio node, most of the time, a key reason why you'd want to use a ratio node is you want one condition to have a higher weighting than the other conditions, right? So that means you're going to want to increase its output, or you could decrease the other node's output. Either way, 6, a half dozen the same, right? So yeah. So again, the short version is at the solver's output, it can have a value greater than 1. Um, but once it gets to the OR node, once it gets to the result node caps everything at +1 or -1. Yeah. Um, let's see here. All right, let me continue going through the list of questions here. All right. So, yeah, looking at Aaron's comments here. Yeah, sounds like he got, yeah, a missing component that he needed for his system. Okay, great. Actually, and always keep in mind that you can always go to the support documentation page, and then under Bloodhound, right, here's the solvers, and here's the logic nodes, and we could go to the additive, right, or to the ratio there, go to the additive, and man, there you go. So there's, some examples there of using it. So let's see, what is this example? Mm, Yeah, so this example is looking for five conditions, out of X number of conditions. Um, ah, and there we go. Ah, there's the video. Yeah. So, um, yeah, just keep in mind, yep, all these nodes here do have a tutorial video as well. And all right, yeah, so there you go. There's a node with twice the weighting of the others. So yeah. All right. Oh, looks like Melroy's got back to me here, maybe. All right, let's see what's going on. All right. So, shoot, I'm not sure how long my microphone was muted. So I'm pretty sure it was muted while I was talking about the additive node uh, documentation page here. Yeah, so again, there's a written example here, and as I was pointing out that there is a tutorial video here, and we can see that in this tutorial we do have a node that has twice the weighting there of the other nodes there. So that's exactly what you were kind of asking about there, Aaron. Yeah. So probably worth the time to go through this video here. Yeah, can't, since it's the additive node, it can't be that long. So, all right. Yeah, yeah. You're you're on your way, Aaron. Um, right. So I was also saying, well, my microphone is muted. Yeah, it looks like Aaron, or sorry, Mel Wright. Yeah, that's just a second comment, about the improvements you've been making to your system. So good, good. I'm glad these workshops are helping out. So yeah, if any, so if you're too, um, if you're what, if you're your two write-ups in the Q&A window, if one of them actually is a question for me, let me know because, well, as I said earlier, the first one, I don't really understand that question. So, yeah, and I didn't get an answer back for you. So, yeah, so I kept that up there because I haven't answered it yet. So, and your second writing there just sounds like a comment to me. So, um, yeah, if it is a question, again, let me know. Um, so, and let's see. All right. Well, we're getting close to the 2 hour mark. So, gentlemen, I'll hang around for um, the next 10 minutes. So, I'll hang around till the top of the hour to see if there's any more Bloodhound questions you can come up with, and also give Melroy a chance to get back to me if he did actually have a question. So, yeah. All right. So, again, at the risk of not seeing my microphone muted again, I am gonna mute my microphone while I'm waiting for the next Bloodhound question to come in here. All right. All right, gentlemen, just to give you a heads up, about 5 more minutes to get some more. I'll make that 4 more minutes to get some more Bloodhound questions in here. All right. And so if I don't see any more questions, then we'll wrap it up at the top of the hour. But if you do have some Bloodhound questions, go ahead and get those into the window and I'll get them answered for you. So, all right. So the workshop pretty much stays open as long as necessary to get everybody's questions answered. So, all right. All right, gentlemen, I don't see any more questions in the last, well, 12 minutes now. All right, so I'm going to assume we are done for the day and wrap it up. Um, yeah, so in closing, if you do have some Blackbird questions for me tomorrow, then feel free to email those questions in. That's always helpful for me. So that way I can make sure I get all the information I need to know about your question. Yeah, and it also emailing your question in puts you, at the beginning of the workshop there. So, it gets you first in line. So, yeah. Well, all right. Yeah. So with that, gentlemen, if I don't see you tomorrow, then have a good weekend, and I'll see you next time. All right. Bye bye, guys.